हेलो, ठीक है, रहने दीजिए। हेलो हेलो, ठीक, यहाँ पर ले रहा है, ठीक है। हेलो, वहां पर आप किसी से टेस्ट कराइए।
Gagan,
Yeah, hi.
hi Gagan. Can you turn on your video, please? We just want to
Sure,
test it once.
Sure. Okay. Do you see the video now?
I don't see. Yes, we can see you now.
Okay, perfect.
How's the weather in Udaipur?
It's nice right now. Early in the morning it gets cold, so it was really nice weather. We're having breakfast outside in the open courtyard.
Good.
Yep.
Okay, we'll start in some time, Gagan.
Sure.
Yeah.
I'll stop my video for now.
Yes. Kavinder, please come here once.
Secretary CA Rahul Rungta. We will start this program with our national anthem, and for that I request all the members present over here, and if possible also those who are attending virtually, to stand up at their respective places for this national anthem. Play.
जन गण मन अधिनायक जय हे भारत भाग्य विधाता पंजाब सिंध गुजरात मराठा द्राविड़ उत्कल बंगा विंध्य हिमाचल यमुना गंगा उच्चल जलधि तरंगा तव शुभ नामे जागे तव शुभ आशीष मांगे गाहे तव जय गाथा जन गण मंगलदायक जय हे भारत भाग्य विधाता जय हे जय हे जय हे जय 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 हे
Now the motto of our alma mater, ICI motto.
येष सुप्तेषु जागृति येष सुप्तेषु जागृति कामं 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 पुरुषो निर्मिमाणः निर्मिमाणः अदेव अदेव शुक्लब्रह्मा
Thank you, everyone. Please take your seat. Now, I'd like to invite our President, CA Bajrang Lal Agarwal, to give his welcome speech.
Respected learned speakers for today's seminars, members of the Central Council and Regional Councils, past president of our association, delegates who are joined via virtual platform and physical platform, ladies and gentlemen, a very good morning to all of you. It gives me an immense pleasure this morning, as President of VIP Road Chartered Accountant Association, to welcome you all to the seminar on startups to capital market wealth multiplier. The two important areas that are on the top of our mind as finance professionals only. I take this opportunity to give you a quick introduction of our beloved association. Our association is in this 24th years of existence and has established itself as the premier professional association of its kind in Eastern India. We have more than 850 chartered accountants as members. We organize various conferences, workshops, seminars, group discussions, monthly join, quarterly journals on our regular basis to enrich the professionals' competence of our members. To guide the coming generation, we also have fully equipped library for CA students. Beyond in the professional spheres, VIPCA also endeavors to build strong bonds between members through social function, cultural program, and other fellowship activities. We can proudly say that C.S. Subodh Agrawal, the past president of ICAI, was one of the founding members of our association and also past president of our association. About the seminar today, in the first session, our learned speakers shall share with us insight on the startup ecosystem, the investment secrets in this startup, and the journey from an idea to a unicorn status. They shall also discuss the various government initiatives to facilitate the growth of the startup ecosystem. Friends, in the second sessions, post-lunch, our experts from the capital market shall take us through the endeavoring capital market, innovation in the mutual fund industry, and trading strategy, and much more. I am sure that all of us after this seminar shall leave with lot of new ideas for startups and investment in capital market. We have received an overwhelming response to this seminar, and I sincerely thanks to the delegates for being part of today's journey of knowledge and new ideas. I am sure that all our participants will benefit tremendously from today's seminar. Thank you very much. Over to the Raj Singhania.
Friends, today's program, as you all know, has been designated in two sessions, first half and second half. The first will be dedicated to startups, wherein it will be divided in three parts. In the first part, there will be two speakers who will attend or deliver their lectures through in physical mode. Thereafter, in the second part, there will be two speakers who will be present physically, and in the third part, it will be a panel discussion on startups. And thereafter, in the second half, first there will be speakers on capital market, and thereafter a panel discussion. Now I request our program chairman, Sri Rajesh Jalan, to give and introduce about the theme of today's seminar.
Thank you, Raj. Good morning, my dear friends, professional colleagues, ladies and gentlemen. I feel honored to welcome all of you who attend physically and who is in virtually mode. And thank you for taking a keen part in this important program. I am sure that you all will feel enriched with and filled with some idea and thoughts on professional opportunity and wealth enhancement after the completion of this seminar. Let me start with the theme of the seminar, Startup to Capital Market Wealth Multiplier. Sir, the Startup India scheme is an initiative of the government of India. The Modi government has made various efforts to support startup. The current state of the Indian startup ecosystem has three goals: to provide an understanding of the growth drivers and motivations of Indian startup founders, identify challenge facing these startups, and outline the pillars in place that support them. There are a lot of companies came with an idea and set up their business and playing an important role in the society, like Grofers, Urban Company, Ola. The second part of our seminar is dedicated to the capital market, which the last 2 years appeared to be the golden year of the equity market, with Sensex touching an all-time high. And the last 2 weeks, we are showing some weakness sign in the capital market. How to react the situation? And we have expert to guide us how to navigate this ocean of wealth and keep our capital intact. The concept of the theme is startup are initially funded by the promoters, after which they seek funds from the venture capitalist. After a few years of growth, when the company has grown to a reasonable size and decent valuation, the promoter decide to monetize a part of their stake by listing it on the stock exchange. The number one reason which made companies multi-million and billion-dollar company is when they went public and when they brought their public issue. We have seen in recent days various startup companies issued share and able to multiply their wealth, like Nykaa, Zomato. The aim of this seminar to provide a comprehensive understanding of both growth drivers as well as the challenge faced by the Indian startup. I thank all learned speakers for consenting to be part of our program on a very short notice, and few of them have even flown down to Kolkata to be among us physically. I wish you a very fruitful and productive interactions. I welcome you all once again and hope that you will have all a great time ahead. Thank you all. Over to Raj.
Thank you, Rajesh, for giving a brief introduction of today's theme. And now, without wasting much of time, as the both speakers of this first technical sessions are deliberating their speech by virtual mode, I request CA Rohit Kejriwal, one of the young members of our association, to introduce the speaker. I also request CA Neeraj Agarwal to come on the dais.
Thank you, Rajiv. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. It's my privilege to introduce Mr. Gagan Saraugi and Mr. Rajiv Ayappa. Their profile is being displayed on the screen. I am reading out for your reference. Mr. Gagan is product management executive with 10 years of experience building enterprise, SaaS startups and growing SMBs in Silicon Valley. He has built 4 successful enterprise SaaS product in the data government and cybersecurity space, generating multi-million dollars in annual revenue. He co-founded NVSNX, a data governance startup in 2018. Gagan has also founded Yellow Door, a soon to be launched real estate marketplace that provides one of his kind financial criteria, search engine and analytic capabilities. Gagan graduated from the Open in 2008 and starts his career at Silicon Valley based SMB. Before joining ENY, where he also met his co-founder for NVSNX. Now I introduce to Mr. Rajiv Ayappa. Rajiv Ayappa is CEO and partner of Platforma Asia, a platform that owns and builds enterprise in the agri food tech sector. Platforma Asia owns India's largest integrated coconut processing facility. Rajiv mentors a startup in the agriculture, food tech, clean tech sector, as well as a few social impact sustainable business in healthcare. He is involved with 10 incubators, accelerators, including Startup OS, IIM Ahmedabad, SIN Mumbai, IIT Madras, CCAM Bangalore, etc., and is deeply embedded in the startup ecosystem in India. Rajiv has 20 years of rich experience in diverse aspects of the crop protection and the fertilizer industry, having built Ivocim from scratch. Now I request to audience who are on physical as well as on virtual mode to give a big round of applause to both of the speakers. Now I request to our association past president, Mr. Raj Singhania, to take the proceeding ahead. Thank you.
Well, now we start our first technical session. The time allotted to both the speakers combinedly are 1 hour. Now I request CA Neeraj Agarwal to take the session forward.
Thank you, Raj. And a very good morning to all of you present in front of us in this hall in Kolkata, and all our delegates who have joined us online on this important seminar, which we have touched upon on startups and capital markets. Welcome Rajiv and Gagan, and thanks a lot once again for consenting to be part of this seminar and agreeing to be our guest speakers today. Hope my voice is loud and clear. Can you hear me clearly, Rajiv, Gagan?
Yep.
Yes, I can. Can you hear us?
Thanks. Thanks. So friends, before I take up this topic of today, startups, just to give you a brief, we have the startup session in 3 parts. The first part we are going to touch upon is startups ecosystem, what this is all about. I had been in discussions with our president Bajrangji on what topics should we be covering for our seminars, and there are a lot of discussions on the topics which we normally cover, which is the GST, the income tax, and the likes. And we thought, why not try something new? And whenever we think about something new, the first thing which comes to our mind is startups. But for we chartered accountants, startup is something which is a new animal for us. We are not sure what exactly do we mean by startups, though we hear a lot, we see a lot about startups. And that's why we thought, why not hear from the horse's mouth, both Rajiv and Gagan, who are experts in this field, who have had experiences in the startup field, who have been advising a lot of people and the institutions on startups. So Rajiv, starting with you first, for our audiences, Rajiv has been in the startup field for over a decade now. He had been in Singapore for more than 20 years, then came back to India, started a lot of ventures in India, and has been successfully running those ventures. And he has been instrumental in setting up, funding a lot of startups in India and abroad, and has been in the panel of the government, the IITs, the IIMs. So Rajiv, startup seems to be the buzz nowadays. Every day we find the news on the startups, especially in the tech field. Can you quickly take us through this? What is this concept of startup? What is its ecosystem? And what is the evaluation or the evolution story in India per se?
Thanks, Neeraj. I'll give you my personal view of it. But before I continue, you can hear me all right?
Yes, we can hear you loud and clear.
So it's very simple. You come up with a concept. You have a proof of concept. You take the company from idea stage to a commercial product or a service stage. And along the way, the best validation you get is from your customer. So you grow the company, but in the beginning, you put in your own capital probably. You borrow from friends, family, uncles, aunties, and everybody. As you progress up the ladder, you make it more institutionalized. So that's how I look at a startup. A lot of, and I'll touch upon this topic later, but a lot of founders spend probably anywhere between 50–60% of their time as they grow bigger and bigger in the funding game, and the time given to the actual business keeps reducing. This is a key concern we'll talk about later. Coming back to the ecosystem of startups, so you have a startup, then probably you raised a little bit of funds, friends and family, then you go to the next step. Maybe you get some government grants, which I will also touch upon later. Then you have a lot of hand-holding by either venture capital companies or small angel investors, what we call Series A, pre-Series A, then Series B, and so on and so forth, until you get to a point where the hand-holding is no more necessary. And my last point about the startup ecosystem is it is not only about funding, it's also about hand-holding in various areas, because if you want to grow from 1x to 10x, it is about proper mentoring. You know, for example, somebody who's been doing these things already for the last 20 years can tell you, and instead of you taking 1 year to take that leap, you might just do it in a month. So it's important to have mentoring, a good networking. Then there are shared services where you don't have to spend so much of money. So that's very briefly about the ecosystem. I'll leave it to question and answers, but I'm also going to tell you in exactly a minute about my own journey. I'm going to compare it to where I was 20–25 years ago and where we are today. You know, I grew up, I studied agriculture, I dabbled in finance a bit, but there was no ecosystem just before 2000. Most people would probably go away, and I did that too. I chose to move to Singapore. When I have come back, I have seen an amazing change. Today, a young, probably a student or a person who's done business for a few years or worked for a company for a few years, comes up with an idea, launches a company, makes a proof of concept, and you have various In the ecosystem, you have the government, you have incubators like IIM Ahmedabad's incubator, and I'm sure in Bangalore they have one. And specific to each field, whether it's biomed, whether it is agriculture, tech, you have different kind of incubators and accelerators all over the country. And just to let you know, it just speeds up your pace at which you grow. So today it's fantastic. You can be a young kid coming out of engineering college, come up with a proof of concept. It will be tested, of course. The government has some fantastic schemes where once your proof of concept, there is one scheme called Biotech Ignition Grant, for example. If your proof of concept is accepted by a panel of scientists, and there are some commercial people like me who sit in these panels, you straight away get a grant of 50 lakh rupees. Now, 50 lakh rupees today is a very decent amount of money at the age of 25 to survive for a year, year and a half. Obviously, the government sets certain milestones, they hold your hand through it, they set up a network of mentors, etc. So the ecosystem, what I'm trying to say is extremely well developed. I mean, there's always lacunas, but it's extremely well developed. You then have various government schemes itself that actually handhold you till the product goes out into the market or to build your business. There are accelerators and incubators who do the same for you. Yeah, that's a very brief summary of the ecosystem and where it has come to from long ago. You know, you would probably be running around for your first 1 lakh rupees. Today, you have 50 lakh rupees just from the government. And this is the central government. You have various state government schemes, 10 lakh, 25 lakh. So a fundraise up to 2 crores is absolutely doable. And then, of course, it's up to the product and the business to prove itself and to come to the next level. Neeraj, back to you.
Yeah, thanks, Rajiv. So very interesting to know that funds up to 2 crores is very doable. I think that will give a lot of incentives and a lot of ideas to our audiences today. Coming to Gagan, you have had a different experience. You had the experience of the Silicon Valley, US. You were with ENY, and then you started on your own. So can you please take us your side as to how the world is different in US? Because when we talk about startups, the first thing which comes to our mind is US, Singapore, and the other advanced markets. So what has been your journey? What motivated you to start this company? And you, I believe you came from a services background from ENY, and then you moved on to a product background. So if you can take us through that journey and the world in US, how is it in terms of the startups?
Sure. Thanks, Neeraj. So first thing is, as an entrepreneur, you're nothing but a problem solver. You identify a problem and build a solution and try to make sure that the product that you build is delightful and customers like it and they want to spend money on that. So key factor is finding a problem which is prevalent, and two, the problem should be something that is not just a nice to have a solution for, but a must have a solution for. So once you find that, then you have to validate your ideas, and then you start to build your company and product and take it forward. So coming from services background, the benefit that we got was we were able to validate the solution that we were building as part of providing the service. So just a brief background of the product that we offer is we help end users identify their data and classify critical IP or junk data within their data sources. And up until now, primarily data protection has been left to IT folks who doesn't really know what data to protect. And we were providing services at Ernst & Young to help companies build a program where they can get end users involved and help get them to classify the data. And based on that, we were able to already validate our idea that, okay, if we can productize this whole service, then we have a huge market out there. So in a way that helped us, coming from services background, we were able to validate our idea even before we jumped on to build our own startup. However, there are also challenges of coming from services background, because especially two of my other co-founders are career consultants. And when you are coming from a career consulting background, you're always thinking of services and not as a technology or a product-oriented company. So it was the learning curve for us to actually develop our mindset to be more towards technology or product-oriented company than being focused on and providing services. Like for example, when we are talking to clients in the early days, we will tend to commit a lot of things which are one-off to the client. And then as a result, we spend time on delivering on those while we could use that time to build our own product. So some of those baggage that we brought with us as consultants also hurt us in the early stage. But good thing was that at least we were able to identify those problems and pivot very quickly in the early stage itself. And we course corrected very soon. So we didn't run into a scenario where most of the startups pretty much they fail within the first year. And right now, 3 years in, we are well established and well funded startup now with a lot of Fortune 500 clients as well. So we have been able to take our journey to a point where we are not just surviving, we are actually building a company and hopefully build a large one. In terms of ecosystem or the support, typically I would say, as Rajiv was saying, especially for the young entrepreneurs, the accelerators and incubator programs are definitely very helpful. There are a lot of those in US as well. One of the very commonly known one being Y Combinator. In fact, it is a very big deal if you make it into Y Combinator, and they provide you, I think, $20,000 or up to $50,000 of funding to get started. And they take a very small equity, but more than the funding, it's the, as Rajiv was saying, mentorship and support that Y Combinator provides, and the whole ecosystem of other entrepreneurs who are working with Y Combinator that you can lean on each other helps you build your company in a much better way than trying to just do it on your own. But at least for us, especially coming from Ernst & Young, and the CEO of the company has had some successful startups in the past, we were able to reach directly to angel investors and venture capitalists. But again, when we were trying to talk to the investors, one of the key things that we heard were that as coming from EY, we know you are very good at identifying a problem and so defining a solution for that. But as a consultant, we are not very sure how well you can execute on a roadmap. So that was one of the things that we were running into. But at least in that case, we were able to draw on to my background coming from product company. Prior to EnvisionX and EY, I worked at another SMB in Silicon Valley, where we built a company from 25% company to 100%, building the product management professional services. And now that we do have VCs who are involved in the company, the biggest factor is, again, tapping into their network, which helps us not only get future funding, but also help us with building our marketing message, then reaching out to prospects. That is helping us a lot. And the value that VC is providing us is a lot more than just the money that they have put in the bank. So that's the overall journey of my startup so far. And back to you, Neeraj.
Thanks, Gagan. A lot of quick insights in this journey of yours in the startup field. Coming to the basics, Rajiv, you come from a background wherein you had an experience in Singapore. We have Gagan, who has experience of US, but most of the people in India, especially in Kolkata, we didn't have that international exposure. Every morning, I'm sure most of the people here wake up with one fine idea. They feel very excited about it. The moment they try to discuss it with their friends, the friends tell, we had this idea already, but nobody implemented that. So I want to understand from Rajiv, first of all, if somebody has got an idea, he's serious about it, what is the process? What is the step-by-step guide which you can provide to that person who thinks he has an idea? Is that idea sufficient or something more is required?
Well, actually, Gagan covered it in the last chat. Execution is key. I'll just tell you about my own journey. I was working in Singapore for a public listed company, and we decided that just selling a product like a commodity would not work. It was the model of the Novartis, the Syngenta, the big guys, their style of benchmarking, their style of looking at product, yet being lean and hungry like a startup. So that's how Ivory Chem was founded 20 years ago. And over a period of time, we very leanly built the company with warehouses in countries like the West Indies, which was not thought of before. And we built our operations starting from Australia on one side to Latin America on the other. We were so lean that we were able to squeeze the supply chain. And like 20 years back, it was very normal to receive your product after 3 months. We made it 20 days. That's when people started looking at us differently. But A, execution is the key, and B, sustainability is also the key, because you can grow very well at seed stage, Series A, Series B, but sustaining in the long run is the key. So all of us as part of this ecosystem look at success there. What was the second part of what you wanted me to speak about, Neeraj, in this section?
So first of all, we have an idea. Once we have an idea, it's all about the execution, you rightly mentioned. But when it comes to execution, how should we be executing that? Is straight away implementing that, or a pilot, or how does it work?
So like you said, what you said is very real. There are probably numerous people who have the same idea. They'll probably go about it in a different way. And like I said earlier, execution is key. So what you would do if you had an idea, I mean, Gagan spoke about Y Combinator, there's Sequoia, there's a lot of guys out there. And even the number that Gagan gave just now is about 25,000 US dollars or 50,000 US dollars. That's almost the same as what the Indian ecosystem gives. So, and for a very small equity. So if I had an idea today, the first thing I would do is make sure I have sufficient data. See, I come from a more agri and more in biomed and that kind. So data is very important. So the first step is to have proof of concept. And if this is scientifically validated, what I would do if I had an idea is I would approach and apply either to an incubator, which is usually through which the Department of Science and Technology or Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation gives their money through. So you would apply to an incubator, incorporate a company ideally, grow your business parallelly, use the network that these incubators give you, take it to the next level in terms of eyeballs and visibility, because that's where there are a lot of venture capital companies, partners who participate in this ecosystem. And they see not your idea on day one, they see how you've taken your idea. They will revisit you in the 3rd month, 6th month, 18 month. And at the stage that it fits their mandate, they will jump in. So when you have an idea, it's very important to A, execute, be part of an ecosystem so you execute faster. You are also comparing yourself to, I mean, you're able to benchmark yourself. And you grow with that ecosystem. And frankly speaking, I tell everybody, you just do your job right, funding will come to you, it'll find you, funding will find you. That's about what I can say about taking an idea and executing. Thanks.
Right. Rajiv, Gagan, when you started your venture, the problem which when I spoke to a few of the people in Kolkata, they say that we have a shoestring budget. And the sort of people we require, whether it is the IT field, the marketing, it requires good people, and good people means more money. So how to handle that scenario? Do you straight away have people wherein you beg, borrow, steal, and then have those people on board to start your venture, or how do you start in that way?
So some of the things I'll just speak from my experience. And before I go answer your question, I just want to share one piece of advice based on my experience, tagging on to what Rajiv just shared. When you share your ideas as an entrepreneur, or if you have a new idea, don't get discouraged by naysayers. If you're talking to someone or sharing your idea with people who are not of entrepreneurial mindset, they will simply be saying, oh, this cannot work. Oh, there are so many people who have these ideas, but no one did it. So don't waste your time or money on this. And that is the last thing you want to hear as an entrepreneur. So that's just one thing I wanted to add there. Now, coming back to your question, yeah, budget is always a shoestring, and probably a lot of times you don't have money to do anything. So what we did was, one, don't try to hire everyone out of the box, out of the gate. Try to do as much as you can on your own. Like for instance, in our team, we had someone who had accounting background. So we managed all our accounting and finances in-house. I was a product management person. So I led the whole product research, marketing, building the prototype, documenting requirements for MVPs. Then the CEO was obviously focused on, as Rajiv said, most of his time spent on finding funding for the company. And we started with a very small budget out of our pocket, and we got some friends and family to invest in our venture. And from there, we hired few consultants or few contractors to help us build our MVP. And once we had the MVP, that was good enough for us to now pitch to investors and brings more money and start to build the team from there. And we also got lucky, I would say, because of our background and prior network, we were able to get some very early adopters for our product and services. So we were able to generate revenue from pretty much first month in the business itself. Some of it was more of consulting revenues, but at least that helped us be self-sufficient for at least more than a year or so. So for the first 12 to 15 months, we didn't even raise any money apart from a few $100,000 from friends and family. And then we started to look for outside investors and angel investors to bring in more funds. So up until we are little over 3 years old, and up until recently, we didn't raise any VC money because we were able to sustain from whatever revenues we generated. And another big thing, actually, we took advantage of government funding. We got $1 million funding from Department of Defense and Secretary of State from the United States. So that helped us a lot. $1 million for a startup is like you feel like a king. So that helped us a lot. And we were very stingy when we were trying to budget for our expenses. No travel unless it is absolutely required. And in a way, pandemic helped with that because of pandemic, there was no expectation of traveling. So that helped us quite a bit. But it's more about knowing your numbers, being able to plan and budget appropriately, and trying to do as much as you can on your own.
Great. So, so far what I understand from both of you, that the moment you have an idea, discuss with people who matters. You have to have the proof of concept, so it should be validated with the data. You have to be lean and hungry. Very important. You have to be lean and you have to be hungry. And time is important. The sustainability factor has to be looked into. But Rajiv, tell me, somebody who had an idea, but suddenly we had this pandemic in the last 2 years. So is it the right time to start up, or is there no right time? Whenever you think it is right, that is the right time for a startup.
Absolutely correctly said. Whenever you decide, just start up. Don't wait because things keep changing. If you have an idea today, it's just an idea. But the moment you start executing, you will see that there are a million things that go with that. So just start, keep moving, keep trudging along. Gagan said, be stingy. Yes, that's very important. You have to keep your costs low and keep your eye on sustainability. So yeah, that's it. You just keep executing. You don't wait for anybody and for anything.
Gagan got his $1 million. My question to you, Rajiv, in India, what government support we have for a startup? Can you quickly take us through that? If somebody has a good idea, which is working out well, what is the process of approaching the government to get use of the incentives which is being provided by the government?
So first of all, different fields have different approaches. I will talk to people who, just keeping in view, people who come with something scientific, whether it is biomed or biotech or agriculture. They usually apply through the Department of Science and Technology. Now, the websites are all there. The information is all there. It's very transparent. So what I would do is, I would apply to a incubator first. Best way to choose an incubator is obviously access to it geographically. But I have seen from my personal experience, there are good incubators and there are mediocre incubators. So go for a good incubator. You can talk to people. Anybody can reach out to me, for example. I put them on to good ones. They will tell you how to go about the process. Let us assume I'm an individual who came with an idea. So they may even encourage you to proceed with your idea as an individual. Get the government grant. Let's say you get a 50 lakh grant. And then one of the milestones of that is how you evolve from being an individual with an idea to, and with a proof of concept of a product or a service, to incorporating a company, building on that and taking it to revenue stage. The next stage would be, and along that stage, you will also get introduced to a lot of local government help or solution-based help. For example, if it is a solution you're providing about saving water, there are grants from, let's say, Hindustan Lever or one of the multinationals. So you can latch onto that along the way. So in your first year, like I said earlier, a combination of grants raising up to 2 crores should not be too difficult. And 2 crores, what is that? It's about a little over $250,000. Yeah. So it's not too difficult. And
Yes.
if you can keep doing that, there are various other grants that handhold you through the process of, let us assume you've now got a patent and you want to take that patent, it's paid for by the government, the entire support system is there. You then want to convert it into a product with revenue. The handholding system there is again available, including some more grants of up to 1 crore or 2 crores just for that particular patent. So the system is very well developed. So if I have an idea, the first thing I will do is find a good incubator, find a good accelerator along the way, and go with it. I mean, I think that's the best way to be handheld by somebody with more knowledge of the ecosystem.
Right. So Rajiv, you mentioned about the incubator, talked about accelerator, then you talked about the process of getting enrolled with the government schemes. We have our audiences who are mainly chartered accountants, and they have been very keen in this field of startups. What role do you think can a chartered accountant play in this entire scheme or this ecosystem of startups? Do they have a role, or if they have a role, what activities or what aspects they can touch upon which would be helpful for startups? Both question to both Gagan and Rajiv, starting with Gagan.
So first thing is, I would suggest, as an entrepreneur, I said, you are a problem solver, and being a chartered accountant, your domain expertise is in accounting and finance. So the first thing, one key thing you can do is identify a problem that you can solve in the domain of accounting and finances. And once you have identified that problem, now you can start building, pretty much follow the roadmap that Rajiv shared earlier in the discussion on how to build the startup from there. Like, for example, one of the ideas I'm working on, not being an accountant though, is to build a product which is an accounting product for real estate investors in US. There are a lot of small time investors like people like me and other engineers or professionals who have some extra money they want to invest in real estate, but they don't know how to manage the accounting and finances, how to even evaluate and invest in the opportunity. There are so many moving parts. So even though I'm not an accountant, I figured out that there is a big need or big void in the market that you can fill by building an accounting software which is primarily geared just for real estate investors who are users like me. So based on that, you can first you need to identify what is the market size. Like, I know there are 12 million investors like me who are investing in more than 50 million residential real estate properties in US. So that itself, if you are able to capture a good portion of that market, you have a sizable market to capture. So as a chartered accountant, what you need to see is how you can use your domain expertise in identifying a problem and define a solution for that. And then I think the two key things that you will need right after that to be able to execute on your idea is someone with the right product background and someone who can build the product for you. So you can provide the vision of what the end goal would be, and you can drive the vision and build a team around you to execute on that vision along with you. And then, as Rajiv said, follow the whole roadmap of reaching out to incubators, taking advantage of government fundings and whatnot to build on your product.
Great. Rajiv, your take on this?
Let me just share you my experience more than 20 years ago. So I started a company in a different country, absolutely no knowledge of how to start a company, nothing. I had zero knowledge, but I knew the business. I knew how to convince my customer. I convinced my first customer. I literally made them pay me in advance even before incorporating the company. Then I went and found my CA, again, an open introduction, and they literally structured everything from incorporating a company to getting me my bank account. And this was like 20 years ago. totally based on trust. And like I said, over the course of years, that CA grew. He grew his business. He grew with me. So that's one thing I'd like to tell the audience today, that when you develop your business with a few startups, it's also an opportunity to grow with them. Fast forward 20 years, 2-3 years back, Neeraj is aware, we have started Plataforma Asia, which is bootstrapped by Indian Ocean Group, Singapore. We have partners who work there as well as here. We have now built a portfolio of 8 companies, with the 9th one, a very large one, being added to the portfolio. Here again, what we are doing is centralized services, including chartered accountants, legal, etc. Running in parallel to that, opportunities for chartered accountants are, and I have been doing this for some of the incubators and accelerators. When you are a startup, you need to keep your costs low. I mean, Gagan spoke about having a partner who was an accountant. Not everybody is fortunate enough to have that. But if you go to an incubator or an accelerator, you could get shared services. And therefore, it's an opportunity for chartered accountants to actually work with incubators and accelerators, because every incubator and accelerator needs to provide services to what? They usually will have a portfolio of at least 50 companies, if not more, depending on the age of that incubator. So you have shared services of a chartered accountant, of the legal guys, and various other things. So I would tell chartered accountants, you have 2 or 3 opportunities. One is start working with startups. It's an opportunity to grow with them and grow pretty large with them. You may lose money. Be prepared for that. If you charge them right, I'm saying don't charge too much, don't charge less, but if you charge them right, you could get an opportunity to actually recoup that in the form of long-term business. You could take a small stake in that company, or of course, like I said, shared services model with an incubator. That is one thing I would tell startups. Obviously, the other thing Gagan said is there are a lot of opportunities out there where chartered accountants can probably even help devise products with various startup ideation.
Great. So, Rajiv, a follow-up question on that. So, we have an association, a VIP Road Association, having more than 850 members now and growing fast. And we have been hearing from both you and Gagan about the concept of incubators. So, what is the qualification required to be an incubator? And can we be, as an association, become an incubator, wherein we can assist the startups? Especially in Kolkata, we don't find much about the startups. There's discussions, but we don't hear so much as in the cities in Bangalore or Noida or Pune. So some advice for us as an association, if we want to have an incubation cell in our association, how to go about it? Both Gagan and Rajiv, starting with Rajiv.
Since you're in Calcutta, I would ask you to take a quick visit to IIM Calcutta and take a look at their incubator accelerator. See, there are so many of them that they will be very open to advising you on how you can build your own. It's a very interesting question you asked me, that how can we be an incubator? I think that's a very good thought, because you have what a lot of startups need in terms of that technical skill. In terms of, as entrepreneurs, we don't think about, okay, this is my share and that is what I'm going to give, and later on, how am I going to get diluted and what's going to happen towards the end? We just jump into it. I keep telling everybody execution is key, but chartered accountants have that certain skill set where they can think through, and you also have that legal bent. And I'm sure a lot of you are also company secretaries. You have that legal bent. Neeraj, you yourself, being a very well-known resolution professional, you have opportunities for certain types of startups where, as they expand their business, you have everything, I would say, that it takes to be an incubator. So pop into another incubator in Calcutta. I can introduce you to some people. But usually they have certain benchmarks. You don't need to invest too much of money. If you have some real estate space, I'm sure the association does. You can offer it to be a dedicated facility to be an incubator. And the government usually funds you. I know Department of Science and Technology does between 5 crore to 10 crore of funding just for an incubator, if you have dedicated space available for it. So I'm sure your field must be having something like that. I can find out and tell you the exact amounts, but yes, you can easily become an incubator.
Great. Gagan, your thoughts on this?
I think Rajiv covered it all. And as Rajiv mentioned, the key thing is that as chartered accountants, you can provide some very valuable services to startups. And that can actually make a significant difference in the actual success and failure of startups. And a lot of times also making sure that entrepreneurs get their own dues when the company actually have an exit. So it is key skill set that you can provide if you build an incubator with those services. And of course, as Rajiv suggested, you have different ways you can go about becoming an incubator. But your USP would be the services that you can offer as chartered accountants and legal expertise that you have.
Right. So Gagan, in this
Back to
long
you,
journey of yours and Rajiv yours, any regrets so far? Gagan?
I think I would say, why didn't I do it sooner? It's always there. So that's the big thing. But I think more than regrets, I'd rather focus on the overall experience and where we go next. You learn lessons along the way and you pivot and improvise based on those. So I wouldn't say much of a regret apart from the fact that sure, it could have been done sooner than when we started, but that's water down the bridge. But what I can share is some of the lessons that we learned along the way, especially coming from consulting background. We initially started off with the idea that we will take some off-the-shelf product, package it together, and offer it as a service. But we spent some amount of money to build that service around off-the-shelf products, but then we realized that that's not really working out. So we were fortunate enough to pivot very quickly within the 3 or 4 months of forming the company. We pivoted and we realized that we need to build our own product, and we built our product and became a truly technology and product company. But that was one big lesson learned very early in the process. The other thing that we learned was I feel that we waited too long to get some of the VCs or institutional investors involved in the company. Our approach of trying to be lean and self-sufficient kind of slowed our progress as well. So if I were to do it again, probably I would like to start looking for VCs to support us sooner than later. Because I think, again, more than the money, the real value that VCs provide is their network, their mentorship, and their support to build the company. And on that note, it is also important to make sure you're getting the right kind of VCs who have similar mindset as you and their goals are aligned with your goals. If your goal is to build the company while VC's goal is to exit as soon as possible, then it is up for a failure. So in terms of lesson, I would say you have to time it right to make sure you get right people involved at right time. So
Time it right, get the right people involved. Key lessons. Rajiv?
Well, again, no regrets. If I was to call it a regret, I would actually call it a learning. The first company I started, I was the 100% shareholder. So the learning was, I don't know, there's different ways of looking at it. The learning was, probably I was a frog in the well. I did not know whether I was good enough in the first place. The moment I came out of it and I joined others, I realized, hey, I was not all that bad. That's one learning. The second thing is pretty similar to what Gagan said. It's important to do your funding parallelly with the business, not to wait for too long because of the network and the, instead of moving at speed of X, you move at 5X. That's what it brings to the table. I think that's very, very important. But all along, I keep repeating two things always. Execution is the key, sustainability, and sustainability. That's all. So no regrets. Yeah, I wish I was born 20 years later. I think I have a long journey to go still. Thanks, Neeraj.
Sure. So we're almost approaching the end of this session. And before we end up, we'd like to take a few questions from our audiences. And let's see if we have any questions from the audiences. Yes, if somebody can place a mic with him, please.
Yeah, sure. Good morning, all. This is Amit Rathi here. Thank you for the opportunity for the. Sorry. I'm not sure whether this question is right or wrong, or maybe I'm a little skeptical. I got an idea, but how to safeguard that idea from being stolen or being when I'm sharing with someone with deep pockets who have all the infrastructure ready in its place, not only the VC, but maybe the website builder or someone. How to safeguard that idea? How to prevent your idea being stolen? That's the first question.
Any of you, Rajiv or Gagan?
Thank you.
Gagan, do you want to go first?
Yeah, I can take that. So that's I would say a concern that every entrepreneur has, and that's a very invalid concern to have. You can have NDAs signed and whatnot. Most of the VCs won't even sign NDAs, but even if they do, those don't really hold much. So I wouldn't be too worried about safeguarding my idea. The best way to safeguard your idea is execute on it as fast as you can, build a right solution and go for it right away. If you wait too long, then your idea is already stolen. And trust me, before you came up with that idea, there are already 100 people who have come up with the exact same idea. It's just that they've never executed on that. So the best way to safeguard your idea is to execute on it as soon as possible.
Great.
I'll give you a very silly example. Imagine somebody gives you a recipe to cook a dish, a very special dish. I make it just by reading the recipe. The other person looks at it and makes it by reading the recipe. It's going to actually turn out slightly different. And the most successful guy, let's assume a brand name like let's take Haldiram's or something like that. The guys have not only perfected the recipe, they have standardized it. They have made sure that when it comes to scaling that up 1x, 10x, or 1000x, they have maintained that standard. So if you have an idea, don't worry. Even if somebody steals it, you will end up executing it better than the others. That's all I can say to you.
Great. Next question. The question is, Rajiv, how to develop the creativity and innovation of the students or our children, because they are going to be the next generation startups.
Well, I don't know. my kids are in that age, daughter 16. But I think, see, today we are very connected. So there are opportunities. See, what do you want to do for your kids? You want them to succeed? Yet I think allowing them to fail a bit is good, because failure is a great teacher in the long run. But what you don't want for your child, you want to shelter your child as much as possible. So I think we've evolved beautifully in that area, because you have something called the net. My daughter wanted to figure out, what to do in life. So I put her in a small course with Harvard Medical School. What I'm trying to highlight is creativity is something that just, I frankly don't know. But what I would tell every entrepreneur is fail, only then you will succeed. That's the only way. But also for your kids, the only way you have a great thing called the net. So while you're sitting at home, they can actually attempt something, fail and still succeed. Fail and still learn. The second thing to learn, I think, is when you have those failures, if you have some sort of mentorship, it's great. Now, as a parent, what do? You just shelter them. You know the steps. If you have a friend who has been through the process, hand-holding them would be the only advice. Neeraj, did I answer that?
Final words from Gagan on this?
In addition to what Rajiv just said, I would say from academic point of view, what is important is to be able to understand the concepts from ground up, instead of just knowing and at a high level. It's important you understand the concepts. Once you have the basic clear and you understand the concepts, your creativity just comes from there. You have the knowledge to build on top of that rather than just knowing something at a high level. Once you know something at a very high level, there's not much you can build on top of that. So I think from academic point of view or from the growth point of view, the important thing is to make sure that the basic concepts are clear for a kid. Like, for instance, we tell them, oh, you should not steal, for example. But they need to understand why you should not steal, why it is bad, what are the repercussions of stealing. So once they understand that, they already know they should not be stealing, and now they can understand what is stealing and what are the different things that can be considered to be stealing. So I think the basic concept is the key to making sure that you are able to think and make your own decision.
Great piece of advice from both Gagan and Rajiv, and it was a wonderful session with both of you joining us and sharing very deep insights on this, the fundamentals of the startups and the ecosystem. So thanks a lot for joining us. And before we wrap up, I call upon Raj to please take over the proceedings on this. So just hang on for some more time, please.
Thank you, Neeraj.
Thanks, Neeraj.
Thanks, Rajiv, as well as Gagan for this wonderful deliberation, and Neeraj for coordinating this first technical session. With this, now I think we should move into the next technical season for. But before that, obviously, a formality is there, and I request our secretary, C. Rahul Rungta, to offer a formal vote of thanks to both the speakers.
Thank you, Rajbhaiya. Good morning, everyone. I welcome you all to this seminar conducted by VIP Road Chartered Accountant Study Circle. On behalf of everyone present here, I would really like to thank Rajiv and Gagan for sparing time from their busy schedule and sharing their insights and experiences with us as a startup entrepreneur. So those who are very closely associated with the startup ecosystem, this term is something which is not only new, but is also very complex. It is difficult for us to understand what is a startup and how it functions and how the world of startup is, or the ecosystem of startup is different from the regular industry startup or ecosystem that we daily encounter on a daily basis. So it is very important for us to decipher this, and I think we will need more such sessions and more time from you, Gagan, and you, Mr. Rajiv, in order to understand all this ecosystem better. Sir, we have mementos for both of you. Sir, these are the mementos that we have for you. If you don't need it, please let me know. I'll keep it for myself. But as of now, what we do is we plan to courier these over to you as and when possible for us. Thank you. Thank you, sirs, for taking time out and joining us today. Thank you very much, sir.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Rahul. Thanks for having me over.
Thank you.
Over to Rajji to take the proceedings forward.